This is the Fly Culture Podcast with me, your host, Pete Tigest. John Aplin is a busy man. As well as running Casterbridge Fisheries that offers fishing and accommodation on the banks of the Frome in Dorset, he also has a business specialising in river restoration. This includes also habitat improvement. He's also one of the nicest people in fly fishing. So John Aplin was sitting by the River Frome this morning. How's it going?
Good morning. Yeah, awesome. Been a very busy year. A delightful year on the banks of the River Frome. Lots of lovely visitors, lots of lovely anglers, full up syndicates. Yeah, it's just been amazing.
Good. And the fishing's been good? You've had a good season?
Yeah, the fishing's been... It's tough. I think it's like everything in life. You've got to work a little bit harder every year to get a few fish. Plenty of fish out there. It's just putting the time and energy in going to get them.
Yeah. And the Frome, really, I guess you know where I'm going to go with this immediately, is you have fantastic trout fishing. I know we had a memorable day in the Eat Sleep Fish Days with the wonderful Tom Moran, John Grindle and yourself, and we just walked the river. I don't think we barely caught any fish. We ended up just chatting about life in general and stuff like that. You got fantastic trout, but obviously it would be remiss of me not to talk about the grayling as well, and the grayling fishing that you have here. And as we're in early January at the moment, it seems correct to do so at the moment. That's been good fun as well.
The grayling fishing's been, it's been absolutely awesome over the years. This year, typically, it's rained. Usually rains after Christmas, but this year's rained before Christmas
and kept on
for
raining.
3 months. And actually, I think listening to one of your last podcasts with Jilly, she said early that she was desperate for lots of rain. Well, thanks, Jilly.
Yeah.
We got it. So it's filled the aquifers up, and only the last day or so we're approaching the middle of January, only the last couple of days has it become sort of fishable. In fact, on one of our new syndicate waters, Bomston beat, one of the rods had a fish of 3-1 yesterday in very difficult conditions, so credit to Trevor for doing that.
And, you know, the Frome holds records for sizeable grayling. What do you think the reason for that is? Is it the food? Is it the environment generally? Or
I think it's a combination of the environment, the food, and I think also the genetic makeup of the grayling that are in the Frome. Apparently, according to research through the Grayling Society and the Environment Agency, the River Dove and the River Frome have the same genetic strain. So there's not a lot of fish. So the Test and the Itchen and the Avon, for instance, you get a lot of fish, but they don't grow particularly big. They're a different shape. They're a lot thinner, not so wide across the shoulders. The grayling on the Frome are like chub. I mean, they're big, solid fish, and you know we know that a 50 centimetre plus fish is, you know, that's a big fish. That's approaching £4. So the numbers are not there. So it's no, you know, I say to people that come and fish, you're not going to catch 100 fish. You might see one big fish, and if you're really lucky, or if you've got the patience, you might catch that fish, but it could be three plus. And to be fair, we get slightly blasé. Did you get 3? No, I didn't get 3 today, but I had 2 3s last week.
wow.
So again, the numbers of big grayling, they go through peaks and troughs over the years. I'm guessing that the life cycle of these big grayling is sort of on about a 6-year turnaround. We scale read Paul Mildren's British record, and that was a fish of 4.4, and the scale read that it was about 6 years old. So we're sort of thinking that there's peaks and troughs in the population. Good recruitment winters, bad recruitment winters. But again, you know, the Frome's renowned for its big grayling.
And these fish, will you, October time, will you see those rising? Do they rise, those big guys?
Yeah, it's funny on the Frome. You get some of the smaller ones, they'll come up and sip olives down, but the big ladies, very, very rarely do they come up. There was one instance in, I can't remember, it was January or February, about 5 or 6 years ago. We were fishing, I was with 2 brilliant Polish guys that were catching some big fish here. And it was a still, sort of frosty day. It wasn't a breath of wind. I'll never forget this. And all of a sudden, there was a few large dark olives coming off. And there were 4 fish with their dorsals in the sunlight.
Wow.
Dorsals cutting through the water, eating these large dark olives. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
We stood there completely gobsmacked, these fish. And then within 20 or 30 seconds, it was all over.
Wow.
And I've never seen that since. They were sort of lit up like sailfish, really. It was extraordinary.
Beautiful.
And we didn't have a dry fly amongst us. Boxes of tungsten, and that was it. So, you know, occasionally you see these things. It's sights you just remember forever.
And of course, I was, you know, I haven't fished here a whole lot, but also sea trout and salmon as well run the river as well.
Yeah, we get the sea trout and the salmon tend to get up this far in late autumn, and they come up and spawn. They do catch sea trout and salmon much further down the Frome, but it's almost to the day here. We get a little bit of rain, end of October, and it's usually the last couple of days you get some big sea trout, fish sort of nudging double figures, come up, start cutting reds, and then Christmas you'll get a few salmon up, and some, you know, we've had some big old boys up here, and they spawn. And I think when you can watch these fish day in, day out, you learn just a massive amount about them. I mean, we had one pair of sea trout here a couple of years ago, and they cut 3 very different reds in 3 very different areas. But you can tell by the sort of fungal patterns, or you know they're the same pair of fish. But they cut 3 different reds. And then we had salmon a bit later on that overcut the sea trout reds.
Wow. Okay.
And even more fascinating, in the spring, well, say that middle of March, when the grayling starts spawning, when you've got 3 pound plus grayling spawning, it's just unbelievable. It wouldn't bring a tear to your eye watching them, because they're laying all their eggs in the loosened gravel that the sea trout and the salmon have already done. So they've done the work for the grayling. Yeah, amazing. In fact, there was a huge red over on one of our carriers, and there were brown trout in there, sea trout and salmon, all in the same red.
Wow.
You know, it's phenomenal.
And it shows how everything relies on everything else to keep that circle complete as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. All sort of,
I remember in the old, when I used to run Eat Sleep Fish, that Paul, I think, leased some, I can't remember his surname, I think it was Paul, can't remember. Yeah, we'll remember when we're off air now, won't we?
Yeah.
And we went down there to do a piece on chalk stream fishing. And
Paul Bullymore.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he flipped a spinner in straight away. You know, brilliant. Fresh. You couldn't have been. Yeah. Talk about catching for the camera. It was in reverse.
Paul knows his stuff for the salmon on the front.
Yeah.
He's a mind.
Yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful fish. He was telling me how it's different coming from spate, freestone rivers where we get a lift and the fish move. But he was saying on the rivers here, that the fish sort of queue up and push each other up the river in effect.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But I thought that was kind of interesting, where we're waiting for conditions. The fish are sort of pushing each other up the river each way. I don't know if that's correct
I
or
don't
not.
know a massive amount about the salmon and sea trout on the lower Frome, but I'm guessing they do. They must. I know they hang around sort of in the river mouths and in Poole Harbour. Yeah. And then if they do get a lift of water or a big spring tide, that'll push them up probably more than the river actually lifting. But, it's fascinating. You know, what do we actually know about fish? Yeah, we don't really know that much about them, do we?
I think that's what keeps us coming back.
That is, absolutely. We're always learning something. Fascinating.
Yeah, and so the trout as well. So the trouts. You know, the more, I suppose it's famous for the grayling in latterly, but always in the background. But, you know, trout on the Frome as well.
The trout. Just going to go back to the grayling just very quickly. But,
please.
You know, it's only been the last, 7 or 8 years that grayling have actually become a sort of cult fish. It wasn't that long ago. They were sort of frowned upon, and dare I say it, grayling were removed from.
I remember being told to tap grayling.
Horrendous.
I couldn't do it.
Absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
It's we've always. I remember there was one bit that grayling were taken out and they were put into some ponds, not far from here, and the guys, bless them, they'd go and fish the ponds and then put the grayling back into the Frome.
Yeah.
So they
they're my
they
kind of people.
They
Yeah.
survived. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, going on to the trout. I mean, yeah, there's one or two big fish on the Frome. One or two very big fish, and it's funny. You know yourself. You take a week or 2 weeks to go abroad and you fish solidly for those days, and if you took a week here or 2 weeks and said, right, I'm going to fish every day, dawn till dusk, especially through Mayflower, you're gonna catch some big fish. The biggest fish on our home beat here was actually a day or two after the trout season finished. We had a fish of 7 pounds 11 ounces.
And that's a wild fish.
A wild fish.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
just mind-boggling. I had a fish of 5.5 just out of season.
Dear me.
But we've had a few, sort of big falls during the season, on dries, which has been awesome. But you've got to, those are fish of a lifetime. They're it's a lifetime's work and observation and.
And it is about time, isn't it? Because you could buy a day ticket, and rightly so, and come down and do really, really well. But sometimes I think people who are consistently catching sizable fish are probably putting those hours in, aren't they?
They're putting the hours in, and they've got that little skill set of fishing really, really slowly. Probably 95% of their day is just looking, watching, walking, casting a few fly. You can fish a river, you can fish it blind, and you can put 1,000 casts into a 50-yard stretch of river, and you just, occasionally I sit in the office here and I'll see the glint of the sunlight on the varnish of somebody's rod, and then I'll look out 10 minutes later and they fished the whole of the top bit of the peak. And I remember saying to mate of mine, I said, that he's going to come back and he's going to say, no, I didn't see him. We'll catch him. And then the guy who you don't see him all day, and then he comes up and I only got as far as Sheep Bridge, and I caught 10 fish. It's that it will always be 20% of the anglers catch 80% of the fish, and whatever.
It's the study to be patient, as I mentioned before. The Isaac Walton chapel, isn't it, or the Fisherman's Chapel at Winchester? Study to be patient or quiet, and it definitely plays dividends. But let's take us right back to the beginning. And have we're in Dorset now. Have you always been a Dorset lad?
I was actually, funny enough, I was born in Bournemouth, which was Hampshire then. And then they moved the border, so it's now part of Dorset. And then moved up to Dorchester with my parents when I was 8. So my initial introduction to fishing was on the Stour, just around sort of Throop and over with my dad. And I can still remember those. I remember floating my school shoe off down the river, which I got told off about. And then I think, we caught a canoe that was half buried in the silt, and it's just little things like that. I can't ever remember catching any fish at that age, but it was great. And then we moved up here, and we were within walking distance of the Frome, and I can just remember looking over the bridge. It was about, I don't know, probably 8 or 9, maybe 10. Oh my God, this river is just, and that's kind of what sowed the seed, and it's just, and the growing up was, on the banks of the River Frome. One of my last school reports from my primary school, the headmaster wrote in there, John spends far too much time before, during, and after school by the river.
Brilliant, fantastic.
So I've got it somewhere.
That'd be an A+ from me, I tell you.
Yeah. So there's fond memories there, and it wasn't just the fly fishing. It was, we fished for everything. We cycled to the beach to fish. We went out on boats. We went course fishing. We did everything that you could possibly do, and I remember the longest 2 weeks were between March the 14th and April the 1st. So you've got 2 weeks of you can't fish anywhere apart from the sea, and we'd go fish spotting every day, before, during, and after school, just looking off bridges. Every bridge has a fish, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Bridge fish, and I remember, so the Dorchester Fishing Club, which I, obviously been keeping for a long, long time. But when I was just a little boy, I remember being dragged into Dorchester Town Centre with my mum shopping, and this old colonel-y sort of guy who was a member of the club just stopped me and he said, "John, where's a good spot to fish this afternoon?" Well, that bridge there's 2 fish underneath it. I'll never forget. And Mum's, oh my God, he's only 10 and he's been asked where the fish are. So, and it was, we used to catch a few fish before school, and I remember, again at primary school, there was a little free bit through Dorchester, and I caught a 12-inch trout, which was massive then, and we obviously kept them to eat them. And I took this fish into school, and I knocked on my headmaster's office. "Mr. Massey, I've caught this fish." And he's like, "John, that's amazing. Whatever happened to that fish, I got no idea.
Yeah.
But I just remember holding it out to him at
Brilliant.
school, and he loved it. He did a bit of fishing, I think, in his time, and it was great. And one of the guys in our school, above a place called Ten Hatches, one day he caught a trout. It was £8. This fish, he brought it into school. It was enormous. Just all completely dumbstruck. This fish is out of our bit of river, and oh God, yeah, awesome.
So the seed was sown really early on, wasn't it?
Completely.
So was it always fishing? When you sort of left school, what was the path then? It was obviously, had you decided that's where I'm going, that's where I'm going to be, or was there another direction and then you veered back?
So we had a careers officer at school, and he told me I was going to be a mechanic, and I couldn't imagine anything worse. I could put a spark plug in a chainsaw, but that's about it. No, I wanted to channel it through the fish. I did a work experience on a trout farm, and then I did a youth training scheme based at Sparsholt College on fishery management. And then, so going right back to the beginning, when I was very, very young, I had a little room in my parents' attic, and I made fishing rods, and I did rod repairs for people when I was probably 12 or 13. And Dad made me this sort of spindle for varnishing the rods and doing the whipping and everything else, and he was so supportive. And then when I finished my youth training scheme, I managed to get a lease on a little carp lake, which sort of started things off. And then I remember Dad saying, "Why don't we turn the dining room into a tackle shop?"
Wow.
Okay, so they had a path down the side of the house, so we put in for change of use for planning, or Dad did, and then he put a door in the side of the dining room, and we opened up this little tackle shop, which was there for 23 years. It was just, it was madness.
Wow.
And on a Saturday, I could remember quite often there'd be 3 of us behind a little counter, and it was busy. It was flat out. Specialist angling supplies, it was called.
Wow. And what were you selling? Everything? Coarse, game, sea?
But it's funny, depending on what type of fishing I was really into, that's what the shop stocked. So if I was into my carp fishing or something, it was full of carp stuff. If I was having a couple of years just fly fishing, it was full of fly gear or both, so it sort of varied.
Wow. And that was just around here?
In Dorchester.
Dorchester, wow.
Yeah. And then I think as part of that, then I got the job as river keeper for Dorchester Fishing Club, and it kind of just all sort of spiralled from there, really. It's it's been an amazing journey, and one of, I'm not going to lie, stubbornness and determination to make it work. My accountant, the nicest man on this earth, was my accountant when I first started in 1985. And for the first 9 or 10 years, we'd sit down and he'd say, "John, I'm not sure this is going to work. You can't make a living out of fish and fishing and everything else." And those words still ring true now, because 34 years down the line, he's still my accountant. And we chuckle about that, because somehow it has worked.
Do you say he told you so?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So growing up, did you have, it sounds like you had fishing friends that you hung out with? Was there a mentor in particular that I guess I know where this is going, but was there a mentor that helped shape you as an angler and your life in fishing?
Yeah, my dad. He was awesome. See, awesome. Sorry.
It's absolutely wonderful that somebody can have a great impact on you as an angler and make you feel the way you do, and you're so passionate about fishing. It must be super cool that he's
yeah, it was
had
good.
that for you.
He's been there on the whole journey, and actually, my granddad on my mum's side as well. His shed had I can see it now. It was just full of green art rods and old Bakelite reels and tackle boxes full of rusty hooks, and you know you pull out a set of feathers and it's still got bits of squid on there and everything. So that was that, and then an Uncle Mick who had the most amazing collection of old Devon minnows and pike lures and everything, and he would send these up to me, and then I'd just litter all the trees around the place with these fabulous old big spoons and stuff. And then, yeah, Dad, he'd take me fishing. We'd go fishing together. We'd go to the river fishing. We'd go to lakes, and he's brilliant. I remember catching my first £20 carp, which, you know, it was a big fish back in those days, and it was at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I caught this fish. You know, it's huge, £21 10 ounces of common. I'll never forget it. and I put it in the sack, and then I walked. I think it was about 2 miles to a phone box, and rang my dad at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he came out to film with an old cine camera. He filmed this carp, and we sort of put it back. So he's always been there. And in fact, last night I rang him just to tell him about this big grayling that somebody caught, and he loves to hear it all the time. He loves it. And do you know, I was helping the Game and Wildlife guys catch some sea trout for tagging last winter, and we were sat on these hatches with an eel trap trying to catch sea trout, and I think we caught one. It was, you know, the condition, and I was talking to Dad about this. Dad's 83 now, and he just said, the moon's in completely the wrong place. You should know that. Because he could remember when I used to spend, you know, every summer out fight netting eels. You know, you'd never catch them with a big moon and everything else. And he remembers all of that. It's brilliant.
Isn't that fantastic? And so all I can get in my mind as well is when you said about your £20 carp, taking that to your headmaster as well and holding it.
yeah.
So it's did you sort of gravitate more and more towards fly fishing, or were you doing, I guess with the shop you were doing a bit of everything anyway, weren't you, to keep
I had a friend who's he lived on the River Frome, which is a tiny little stream just outside of Dorchester, and we'd cycle up there with old bamboo rods and fish on the river there, and we were fly fishing right from a very very early age, which was, in fact, I think my first proper fly rod was one of those nasty split cane imports that came in a sort of long wooden box with the bright silver ferrules. Do you remember those? Yeah. And you could actually turn the handle round and put a little thick spool on it if you wanted to. Yeah. So I had that, and the first, I remember trying to cast that with what I presumed was a silk line, but it wasn't. It was just some old backing that was on this reel, and obviously it didn't cast properly. Yeah. And then we sort of progressed from there, really. You know, sort of cheap lines, tried making our own flies, worked occasionally.
And how do you see, I don't know if you fish the Cerne still, but how do you see that river now comparable to when you were fishing it back then?
Do you know, I'm just thinking, I'm trying to cast my mind back, and all I can see is ranunculus and brambles as far as the eye could see. And we battle our way through these brambles and get in, and we did catch a few little fish, and now I think the Cerne is still quite similar. You know, it's a stunning little stream, as are, you know, all of our little carriers and feeders, and obviously the main Frome itself. But it's I suppose in the blip of time, you know, I'm 52 now. It's a blip, isn't it, in the whole. You know, in the whole scheme of things. And
I think as I get older, and I'm just a tiny bit older than you, but it was always sunny. it never rained and everything was as you remember it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. School holidays were always warm and
God, yeah, we used to spend all our holidays just fishing.
Yeah.
You know, and staying awake all night trying to fish on the beach and then go back and then get some different gear to go fly fishing or chub fishing, or you just lived it. It's like somebody said to me the other day, what's it like? I said, well, I can only imagine that if you took the best recreational drug and it wasn't good enough, that's what it's like. It's just, you can't get enough of it. You eat, sleep and
fish. Literally. And I get the impression you're just still as passionate. Whenever I see you, you're still as passionate about fishing, be it here, be it wherever, as you always have been.
It's just. Yeah, and I said to you when you got here this morning, I got into bed last night, I was so excited about doing this podcast today, and I was talking to myself until got the early hours, sort of planning and thinking and everything else. And then, no, every day you just can't wait to get out, can't wait for it to get light, which is a bit of a struggle at this time of year.
We'd been, and again, when we were talking, where I was sort of starting to pace a little bit because the rivers were shot. And last week I went out fishing with Gerald and Steve and Perry, and the night before, still I can't sleep.
Yeah.
And it's really funny, since I stopped guiding, I think I love it even more. Which is...
Yeah, I haven't barely fished this year. Work's been so busy, and I did fish. I went to New Zealand back in March with two dear friends, and we fished for 21 days.
Lovely.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But you jump in the car and you drive to a river and you think, I've got 21 days of this. It's awesome. And then you're back at the airport.
Yeah.
You think, where did that go?
Yeah. So coming back again, is it mainly, I get the impression it's mainly rivers for you then? You don't tend to fish the lakes and stuff?
No, the rivers are just magical, aren't they? Because you don't know what's there. It's a completely wild environment. You can fish one bit and never see a fish, and then go to the same bit, and there's fish there. It's ponds. I love the idea of stillwater fishing. I'm not overly struck on killing fish. I'm not going to lie. And I think if there were more catch and release fisheries, I don't know. Perhaps I'd go a little bit more when the rivers were blown out. But no, it's the mystery of the rivers. Just going around that bend and seeing a fish rise, and occasionally you see a big fish rise. Occasionally, you get the cope jaw come out, and then a second or two later the dorsal, and then the tail, and that does make you shake. That does make you shake. You're trying to catch your breath, and your casting goes completely to pot, doesn't it? And this fish is like that, and then you spook it, and you think, I've got to go back. I had a fish on a tiny little tributary of the Piddle a few years ago. I spooked it, and I went back a week after, and then by some miracle I was in the right place at the right time. John was on the bank, and I'm under a hole, just under a tree. Okay, so I've got, all I can do is bow and arrow the top section of this little 7-foot rod with a French partridge, my favourite.
Great fun. Yeah.
This little run between the ranunculus, sunlight sort of, proper sort of, and this mouth just came up between the, and I played this fish, it went under the tree. I mean, it's just, I shouldn't have landed it. It just shouldn't have happened. And I think John jumped in and netted it for me. It was a £3 fish, I guess. Awesome. It was like mahogany. It was just, and John just took some pictures of the head, and then off it went. It was just, and we both stood there, shaking, grinning, and John hates it, but he had to have a hug.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So, you've mentioned keepering and river restoration. Was that a natural progression from the keepering that you took your services a little bit wider?
Yeah, I think fortunate enough to be involved, in the very early days of chalk stream restoration and maintenance and improvement work and everything. And it's all a massive learning curve because nobody really played about with it. And I was lucky to have Alan Frake, good friend Alan, who was kind of leading the way with chalk stream restoration and techniques and everything else. And we worked together on a few projects, and for me, sort of learning, and then all of a sudden we were on a project that he was helping me with, not a million miles from here, and somebody took a brilliant picture of him putting his arm around me to say, we've done it, this worked, this project has worked. And my confidence and hunger for learning about more chalk stream restoration projects just spiraled. And in fact, he called. We put in on this job. We put in a good few 100 tons of gravel to try and recreate some spawning areas. And these 2 riffles we put in, all it did was dam the river in 2 bits, and just backed everything up. And it looked horrendous. It was just. And we stood there scratching our heads because we've got to get these riffles working. They're not dams; they're riffles. Yep. They pull water and they work for a living. And we got the machine driver, just 20-ton long reach. Right, make holes in these riffles, smash that gravel to bits. It doesn't need to be like a technical drawing paper. Smash them all up, and he did it. And it looked a proper mess. And then all of a sudden, the river started working over these riffles. I mean, it was awesome. Alan called it the Frome Rapids. Yeah. and it was brilliant. And over a period of time, it settled down. We had fish spawning, and it worked.
And it's amazing to see how restoration now, I guess you, like you say, probably at the forefront of this sort of thing, that people have realised that the rivers are not for the fishermen, they're actually for the fish, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're for the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
The whole package. If you can look after the habitat, the invertebrates, the fish look after themselves. They're up there at the top, and it's the whole package. Yeah.
And I guess that must be hard physical work as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's great. A chainsaw and dragging trees about, banging posts in. It is. It's hard physical work, but you kind of. I can use a chainsaw and fell trees all day and work in the river from dawn till dusk, and I'm buzzing. If I sit in front of the computer for half a day, I'm shattered. It's mentally draining. Whereas, when you're out working on the river, you're always with a bunch of mates that are equally as passionate, and I love it when you look at a bit. And think, okay, what are we going to do here? And there's 4 or 5 of you scratching your heads. Think, we could do that. No, that won't work. Well, what about doing this? And then we pull it all together. And then if a bit of it doesn't work, you can change it. You can go back and tweak it a little bit. But more often than not, it works. But you've got to look at your restoration project over a period of a year or a lot longer. To see if it actually does need restoring. I mean, there's a bit further down from us here. It's very straight. It's very uniform in depth, and various bodies said actually that needs restoring. It needs to be made much better. Why? Well, there's nothing there. It's just ranunculus and gravel. It's straight. It's uniform. Well, go back there in January, and you'll see 30 reds that the salmon and sea trout have been cutting. Why would you want to change that? There's nothing there throughout the rest of the year, but it's one of the best spawning areas on the Frome. Leave it alone.
That's a good mantra, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is a good mantra. So if someone spends their life around or in chalk streams all the time, what sort of state do they look into you right now? I hate to pause because it sounds as if I'm looking for the negatives, and do you know what? There's far more positives with our chalk streams. They're under constant battle. They are living on a knife edge. There's no getting away from that. There's a lot of people passionate that want to see these chalk streams just looked after. My biggest concern is,
You know, we can carry out restoration projects, we can do maintenance, but we need quality and quantity of water. That, as a river keeper, you can't do. That is down to the Environment Agency and various water bodies. So those guys they've got to take care of that. It's our inheritance. We want our grandchildren and everything to play about on chalk streams and enjoy them.
What about hatches then? What is your feedback on hatches?
Well, you know, when you're looking out across the meadows now, all these water meadows, the river systems, they've all been managed by man for the last few hundred years for whatever needs man wants. So now here for instance, back in the late 60s, early 70s, the land drainage department came with their drag lines and they dug all the gravel out and they straightened bits and to dry the land out to increase yield and everything else. And then 25 years ago, we decided, actually, that's not the right thing to do. We need to get fish spawning here. So let's put all the gravel back in. Let's plant some trees. Let's get some flow deflectors in. Let's drop some trees into the river to get lots of large woody debris in there. And I can remember talking to a digger driver who was here. And he said, you know what, John? Back in the late 60s, I was driving the digger to take all this gravel out, and now I'm bloody back in, putting it all back in. So it all, and who's to say in another 50 years we're managing our rivers for something else. So in terms of hatches, they're man-made, so they need to be used and controlled by man. And I think they can serve a good purpose. If they're blocking fish passage, then obviously they've got to be looked at. But there's times a year where you could actually just back the water up a little bit to keep some of the smaller streams running, and then lift all those hatches come the autumn so that the migratory fish have got free passage over the whole catchment. That's the important thing. Cool. So it's using them properly.
Yep. And insect life, how are you seeing insect life on the rivers as well?
Insect life, you do a kick sample and it's full of gammarus, it's full of olives, there's a lot of mayfly. It's far from doom and gloom. I mean, the days when you put your windscreen wipers on and you smear the mayfly and olives and everything else, they're long gone. Yeah. But there are still some really good hatches of fly. Some really good. The blue-winged olive here in July, August is awesome. Wow. It's brilliant. But it's for 20 minutes. Last thing at night. You know, and no disrespect to a lot of the anglers. They go, we'll go fishing about 9 o'clock, and then it's a bit hot now. 3 o'clock, we'll go home, and that's it. You know, last thing at night. These meadows are just dancing with spinners of every imaginable type. It's just, in fact, the strangest thing on the club water a few years ago, I was walking up the lower water, 6:30, 7:15 in the morning, and I was just looking. I thought, there's a lot of olive spinners dancing. No, there's millions of olive spinners. Oh my God, there's a few mayfly starting to dance. And there was zillions of mayfly spinners and olive spinners and everything else in the morning. Okay?
Wow. Yeah.
And then the whole lot fell on the river.
Wow.
And it was like a stew pond. It was, and then 8 o'clock it was all done. All done and dusted. Not an angler out of bed. It was... And I can remember talking to Cyril Bennett about that, and he's weird. You know, big falls a spinner in the morning.
I've seen that on the Wiley actually.
Have you?
Yeah, because I'm always early.
Yeah.
And I was driving up from Devon to go fish there, and I caught a spinner full there pretty early in the morning. Wow. I also caught my best ever blue-winged olive hatch 10 o'clock at night. I could barely see.
Really? Yeah.
And fish were just...
Yeah.
Oh, it was... You never forget, like you were saying about seeing the grayling, you never forget those things, do you?
No, you don't.
And yet I stayed over. I said to him, I've got to stay over. This is just too... And next evening, nothing.
Yeah.
Quiet as anything. And I built it up. I had a friend. I said, you've got to come. This hatch is amazing. You've got to come fish this hatch. Nothing. And it was really funny. It's just
bizarre.
hitting those...
It has got to be... The conditions have got to be 100% right.
Yeah.
Haven't they? And the amount of times I send people out, it's going to happen. And then the air temperature just drops a degree or two. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. It's funny old game.
Yeah.
So we're sitting here on the banks. I can see the Frome as I look out the window now. We're at Casterbridge. You got some fishing here. You got lots of fishing here. You got accommodation. How did you come to be here? How did this all come about? Because it's looking awesome since I was last here. It's amazing.
I'm going to say it's the icing and the cherry on top of a very big cake.
Mm.
So I first came to the dairy house here when I was 10.
Wow.
And I was introduced to the family, and the old brigadier, bless him, took me sort of under his wing and showed me the river, let me fish for grayling during the winter, float fishing, and then it kind of just carried on that way. Then I started keepering here as well as everywhere else, and we'd always joke. A good friend of mine, Elliot, we'd be working on the river for years, and I'd always say I just dream of leasing the fishing house, dream of it. And then one day, agent rang me and he said, "Do you want to lease the fishing?" Oh my God, yes please. Oh my God, yeah, like pinch, like, oh God. And then I was stood here, and the family had moved up to the Cotswolds, and the house had been empty for about 6 months, I think. And so I said, so what's going to happen with the house? And he just looked at me and smiled. He said, "Go well with the fishing, John, wouldn't it?" So, my God, yeah. Well, Christ, let's give it a go. So I phoned my wife, and she finished work and came out and had a look. And bless her, she said, "If you want to give it a go, let's do it." So we took the whole lot on. It's just been the most amazing adventure.
How long ago was that now?
9 years ago.
9 years. Wow.
Yeah, time flies.
It does go quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, just flown by. It's just, yeah, it's been amazing.
So tell us what you've got here. You've got accommodation. That what have you got, and how much fishing and
yeah,
stuff?
we've
Tell
got
us a bit about that.
we've got a lovely annex, which is by a courtyard by the house. Sleeps 4 people. Separate patio and gardens and everything else, and then it's obviously within 200 metres of the river. We've got 1.5 miles our home beat here, which now joins on to our new Bompston Syndicate, which is another 1.5 miles of fishing, and then we keep the Dorchester Fishing Club, which is just the other side of the village. We've got 7 miles of fishing there. We've got our little syndicate, which you know all about.
Yeah.
And that, I think we've got another 3 or 4 miles of fishing with that. So we've got a fair chunk of fishing, and most of it is available on day ticket. Some of it's syndicated. But it's a lovely package, and it ties in well with the accommodation.
It's a really pretty part of the world, isn't it? And again, looking out the window, it's just really pretty.
It's peaceful.
It is lovely.
It's very, very peaceful, and it's as lots of people say that come time and time again. They just say it's real. This is real fishing. Yeah. This is what it should be.
Yeah, and you can wade.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, we've got. Do you know, occasionally people ring me or email and say, "Can you send me a list of rules?" I haven't really got any rules because I like to think that we've all been doing it long enough. We know a little bit about it. We're passionate about it, so we do use barbless hooks and we put all the fish back. You can wade if you want to sneak a dry fly under a bush because it's tricky upstream.
Good for you.
Bend it slightly.
I like that. That's really cool. And you're also really active in the fishing community here. You have your Chalk Stream Club as well that I know goes really, really well. And you have people down to talk and you try and put groups of anglers together. And
yeah, 100%. I've always been a great believer in, you can't take all the time. You've got to put probably more back into what you do than we do. We do somehow make a living at it all. But one of my I guess one of my passions was to try and bring people together. People, you get a day ticket, you go fishing on your own. You might go with a couple of friends. You've heard about so and so. Somebody's mentioned in a tackle shop. So how can we do this without committees and people's agendas and everything else? How can we bring the Chalk Stream community together and make it fun? Right, okay. Chalk Stream Club. Yeah, let's do that. We've got an amazing village hall in the village. We've got oodles of friends that will do talks and help us along the way. So I think 8 years ago now, we put the Chalk Stream Club together, and I asked dear Charles Jardine if he'd like to come and be the first guest speaker, and bless he came, and we had about 35 people sat in the ring, and nobody. I remember people just sort of sat around and thinking, well, there's no committee. Who's sort of leading this? I think I've seen him somewhere before. Hello, my name's John, blah, blah, blah. And then it's sort of, people started talking. And then over the next month, we perhaps had 40 people. Oh, you were here last month, weren't you? Oh, I fish on this bit here, and why don't you come with me and never go on this bit? And now we get, I think the most we've had is 80, 90 people. Wow. We get guest speakers that want to come and talk. We've got the format absolutely bang on. The Dorset Wildlife Trust, they sponsor the hire of the village hall.
Wow.
So it's actually free for people. And they came to me, they said, can we sponsor it? We like what you do. You're bringing people together. Let's make it free. So we've got the format right. We have a guest speaker, and people actually bring second-hand tackle and books, and we have tables where people sell stuff. People talk about chalk streams, water meadows, fishing. You know, the Wessex Water come and talk about sewage treatment works, and you know we cover a whole multitude of stuff. It's not just fishermen; it's people that are passionate about our chalk streams. And the lovely thing is, everybody brings a plate of food. We have a big buffet table. Guest speakers finish, and then it's food, chit chat, buy something off the second-hand tackle stalls. It's completely informal. And most nights, or we meet on a Friday night once a month through the winter, and usually by midnight, I say, come on guys, I've got to go to bed. That's just it. And it's been such a success. It really has. And it's okay. I sort of came up with the idea, but it's down to everybody that goes, and they all want to help. They want to clear up at the end of the night. They want to put the tables away. Half a dozen of them get there early and help put stuff out, and it's just become a real community. And
it's really cool if people listening who are not, and I include myself in that, in the chalk stream belt, as it were. Often chalk streams people think they're seen as retired majors or generals with double-barrelled names. There's a machine gun nest if you cast a fly downstream, and you'll be shot immediately. And this is really dispelling that myth, and that's something I'm really into.
Oh, it's got to be fun.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place full of beautiful people, and I remember when I put the little syndicate together, we had a work party, and there was 20 of the little syndicate members, and we got them all lined up for a picture, and I jokingly said, guys, there's no tweed on any of them. And then I think Chris Kent, bless it, he said, why don't we make that a rule, no tweed? But no, it's just been fun, and like we were saying earlier, we want it to be accessible to everybody. You know, chalk stream fishing, it was a very sort of landed gentry thing. Now, with the clothing, the tackle, the people, it's quite a cool thing to do. We've got to push that and get more younger people in, and it's got to be fun. And right from when we first started running chalk stream fishing, my philosophy, if you like, was to make it affordable and accessible for everybody who wants to give it a go.
Brilliant.
That's the paramount importance. You know, actually last year I got a guy, John, honestly, I haven't got any money. Can I give you £5 to go and fish one of your beats? I said, yeah, you can, as long as you come again. And he fished a little beat, caught a few fish, but it just opened his mind, and now he fishes a lot of the little streams down in Devon, which he loves because it's a bit more affordable for him. But no, it just take away that £200 a day, and you'll get just the nicest people that are passionate about their wild fishing. It's been an amazing journey with amazing people.
And one of the questions I ask people a lot is, how does the state of fishing look? And there's two things actually. One is the hatches, and I always ask people about, the bug hatches, how are they looking? They always seem to be positive feedback. and the state of fishing as well. And I guess you're going to say from your club and everything else, pretty good shape. And that again is something else that seems to be coming across to me. It's not as much doom and gloom as we think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. You know, the glass has got to be half full, hasn't it?
Always.
You know,
Always.
if it's all doom and gloom, well, a rubbish season, I'm not going to go next year, and that spreads. It's game over, isn't it? But I think you've got to just have that enthusiasm. And yeah, I didn't catch 10 fish today. I caught 2 fish, but I've had the most amazing, peaceful day in stunning surroundings. Just me, and yeah, it's far from over.
Good. The theory I keep pushing, and apologies if I've mentioned it before, is that I think what we're seeing is a little bit of a downtick at the moment. The trend is down, but a lot of other pastimes like golf, whatever it is, are in a little bit of a downswing at the moment. It may be cycling that has taken some of those people away. But I think in fishing, if we just looked at our tiny little world, that I wonder if we're starting to lose some of those people. Our little boom, I think, in fishing was 70s, 80s with the still water boom. And the anglers who took part in that are getting older, so we're losing those out of the system. There are great schemes bringing kids in. Kids disappear for a bit because they do other stuff in school, and then they come back in their 30s, 40s, whatever it is. Bit more disposable income, perhaps, not always, and they're coming back into it there, and it's seen cool. You're seeing things like, in the States is in great shape. Scandinavia, I go and fish out for sea trout in Denmark once or twice a year. Young dudes everywhere throwing. It may not always be fly lines, but they're out there fishing, and you'll see it rammed, with anglers. And so I think there's the social media. I look at these younger guys, and I've talked to some of them on podcasts as well, and it doesn't feel to me as though we're in a end of the world type scenario. It doesn't feel like that.
It's funny. I had the weirdest feeling last summer. I'm pushing a big mower along the river, and I suddenly thought, could be the last generation doing this as a keeper and everything. And I felt pretty low for an hour or two. I'm not going to lie. And I thought, no, this is, there's going to be other generations that want to come through. The youngsters, I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I look at all the people fly fishing, people that come here on the club and everything else, late 40s, early 50s, we're still the younger generation of people fishing. We've got a handful of people, early 20s, late teens. I mean, I'm talking just a handful that come and get involved with the Chalk Stream Club and everything else, and that's good. We've got to. It's better than nothing. But what I do see is juniors in coarse fishing and sea fishing that are still coming through, and brilliant. Get as many youngsters coarse fishing and sea fishing and everything else, because they will one day wake up and think, actually, I'm going to give that fly fishing a go on the river. I've done all my coarse fishing. We all did it. We served our apprenticeship catching little roach on a float and everything else, and you get into fly fishing and everything as well. So I think that's an important element. If the youngsters are getting involved in whatever type of fishing that they enjoy, get them doing it even more.
And the really interesting thing as well is that some of the crossovers now, if you're looking at soft plastics, it's almost kind of a natural step across.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
You've got, carp is becoming, it has been in the background, hasn't it, for a number of years. Yeah. But people like Corsican Dave, Jamie Sanford are making that cool and not just always chucking out dog biscuits to bring them up. They're actually stalking these fish and catching them. Yeah. So there's ways of reaching people if you're at a carp pond and they see you rock up with a, I remember right by me we've got a carp lake, and I took a guy years ago and we were throwing some out, and a guy turned up in a van and emptied all his gear. It took him about an hour to set up. We'd had about 4 carp.
Yeah. That's every fish eats an insect. Yeah. So you can fly fish for them. Yeah. All coarse fish and everything, and it's fun, isn't it? You chuck a pair of waders on, you've got a few bits in your pocket, a rod, and a net, happy days. You
Yeah.
can go off for the whole day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But I was just going back to school. Everybody in our class fished, and I said to Libs only the other day, when you were at school, how many kids at your school went fishing? And she didn't even have to think about it. No, nobody. Which that's a little bit worrying.
Yeah.
But there we are. Like you say, it's peaks and troughs, and in 10 years' time, everybody could be fishing again. We don't know.
Yeah, it could change, couldn't it? And I think I've mentioned again before, the Paul Whitehouse and Bob Mortimer programme has been brilliant for fishing.
Yeah.
On mainstream TV,
brilliant.
two guys, and it's not about fishing, is it? It's about them looking at their life, but using fishing to do that, and they do it so well. They've got a third series. That's got to be a good sign, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've talked about the Frome and your love of Dorset and the rivers and the streams there. Let's take you further afield, because I know you've talked about New Zealand as well, but I know tarpon are a passion of yours, and you really love doing that as well, don't you?
It became a very unhealthy obsession, I think. I think the word bankruptcy was almost on the agenda then. It became... And it was quite a few years ago. I think I was watching some fishing on the telly, and I was just about to doze off, and I think it was Paul Young fishing under 7 Mile Bridge.
Yes, I remember that.
Tarpon.
Yeah.
And this fish just tail walked under the bridges, and that was it. That was it. Oh my God, that's quite scary. I've got to go and do that. And the initial trips were, I think we went to the Gambia because it was a lot cheaper than anywhere else to try and find tarpon there, but we didn't. And the few that they do catch, they killed, which is pretty poor. So eventually I went to Florida, and I caught my first tarpon out of a place called Fort Myers Beach, which was just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. I can't remember the guide's name, but he said, first of all, we've got to catch some bait. Here we go, that's the day gone.
Yeah.
So we flew out, and he threw a cast out, caught lots of bait, and then we were catching tarpon, and it was just it was mind-blowing, completely mind-blowing. It was I couldn't get my head around it. It was and then I remember a shark ate one of the tarpon next to the boat. This huge bull shark. I mean, it just ate the whole lot. And he said, "Do you want to catch that shark?" Well, it's all. I was quite young then.
Yeah.
All right, let's give it a go. So we caught this bull shark, and it was 12 foot long. Measured it alongside the boat. Wow. So that weighs between 700 and 1,000 pounds. We'll take it in. Like, no, we're not taking it in. Yeah, you can have your picture with it on the. No, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. And it got quite heated, and then eventually he got the hook out, and this thing swam off. Turns out it was so-called unofficial world record bull shark, which was, and then we went back and caught another tarpon.
Nice.
I remember just sitting in this caravan that night thinking, what just happened? And then it kind of spiralled, and then I found a guy down in the Keys who was doing some stuff, and I went and fished with him for about 10 years, and catching tarpon, big permit. I had a permit with him a few years ago that bottomed out £50 scales.
Oh, dear me.
I mean, it's and lots over 30. I mean, it was just extraordinary. Big tarpon. Did a few features. I mean, it was awesome, and I actually ended up guiding 2 tarpon seasons, running his boat for him, and that was an eye-opener. It was pretty nerve-wracking stuff. I'm not going to lie. Your navigation's got to be 100% in the Keys, and especially running a boat in the dark as well, because a lot of the tarpon stuff, was at night. Some pretty scary stories for another day, I think, for that. Yeah, amazing. So yeah, I did 2 tarpon seasons, and then with everything that's going on here, I just got to, just want to be here now.
They're amazing fish, though, aren't they? And I've been lucky enough to catch a few, and bonefish and some permit, not many.
Yeah.
But I think that's the one I could get something for, the tarpon. And like you say, I think it would be a stage of just
sitting bolt upright in bed at night,
sweating,
thinking about these fish and their fight and the takes and it's just. And when you see them, when they're not feeding, when they're just rolling under the bridges, it's just, and the scales. I mean, they're just, they're ghosts, aren't they? They're just the most amazing.
I think anything that you count takes, jumps, almost in, that's not easy to land is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I think we were running about 1 in 5 to the boat for release. They just throw the hooks and come off, or whatever they do. The most I was out there one year doing a feature with Henry Gilby, who's the greatest guy.
I've been on trips with him. Great,
brilliant.
Yeah,
I think I had a stomach ulcer. I laughed so much on one of those trips. We were crying all day. It was just brilliant. Anyway, Henry, he got a picture of me on the front of the boat with a huge tarpon jumping into the rising sun. It was just the most amazing picture that I was just chuffed to bits. And then the weirdest thing, a few years after that, I was out there with a guy called Jim Whippy, who used to own a magazine called Boat Fishing Monthly. And Jim took a picture of me playing a tarpon that jumped into the sun.
Oh, wow.
A few years later.
Wow.
It was just extraordinary. And magic moments.
Yeah, they're the sort of ones where you sit by the fire when you're too old to do stuff that you try and remember, don't you, and play back in your mind and stuff like that. Yeah. So you were saying, your heart's here. What have you got planned for this year?
I think it's funny. Every year is obviously different, but I think every year I just want to do more. I want to do more on the river. I want to get a few more people staying in the annex, which is going to be difficult because it's full up. We've got actually a beautiful old Victorian reading room in the village that we're restoring, that we're hoping is going to be up and running by the spring for more holiday accommodation. So that's exciting. Beautiful little building, that obviously close to the river. Get a bit more fishing, do a bit more work on the fishing that we've got. Just keep everything going, really. Just keep that huge amount of enthusiasm.
That's good. I'm feeling that, and the passion, and seeing you get a little choked up talking about your dad shows your passion and love for your family, but also for fishing and this particular river. And I feel similar to my own little stream as well, and you do, don't you? They do get you and 100%. Get under your skin. And I know last year I barely fished anywhere else. I just fished the Tor nearly all year, and that's been it. And a bit of up country for grayling and stuff like that, but it's got everything I need.
I say it every year, and so does everybody. I'm going to try and fish a bit more. It doesn't happen. It does not happen. I cast quite a lot. I love just getting a rod and just standing on the lawn. If I sit in the office for an hour, just go and get a rod and just do some casting. And I like it. We get a bunch of friends over before the season starts and just do some casting.
Yeah, nice.
Eat some cake and
nice.
Yeah, beautiful.
Fantastic. Well, John, we've spoke for over an hour now.
Really?
Yeah, it goes quick, doesn't it? It goes quick. And like I say, it's been lovely talking to somebody who's so positive about everything, and you captured that perfectly with the glass half full, and you're certainly one of those people, and it's good to be around people like yourself, because enthusiasm like yours rubs off on other people, and I think the fishing club that you run is a testament to that, and I wish you every continued success with what you're doing here, because I think it's fantastic. And I meant it at the very beginning when I said I do always say I think you're one of the nicest people in fishing and deserve every success as well. So I wish you well for 2020. It's been brilliant sitting talking with you this morning. I've really, really enjoyed it. It's always lovely to catch up with you. So thank you so much. Perhaps we can do some fishing this year, and you're welcome over to Devon as well if you fancy crossing the border, catching a few fish. So thank you so much for sitting down and having a chat with me. It's been absolutely
awesome.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Pete.
Fantastic. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as me. This is the Fly Culture podcast. If you haven't seen our magazine, it's a quarterly magazine. Fly Culture is available via our website, flyculturemag.com. You're also, if you're in London, it's stocked in Farlow's as well. You can find it there. And if you're a bit further afield in Canada, Oscars in Smithers hold it as well. We're a small little group of people, but we're hugely passionate anglers. We're just like you, and we're trying to offer a magazine that encapsulates everything that we love about fly fishing. We're not telling you how to fish or what fly to tie on. We're just trying to share our passion and our writers their passion. We have great photography, great writing. You can find us on the usual social media channels. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're on Twitter as well. So I hope if you haven't found us already, that you will check us out. We keep all the social media channels open all of the time. We're always posting new stuff. So we hope that you'll enjoy that. I hope you've enjoyed this. There's lots more podcasts planned. It's early January at the moment. I'm going to be heading north in mid-Jan to catch up with some people there as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. And thank you for listening, and thank you for listening to the Fly Culture podcast, and hope you'll enjoy the next one too. Many thanks.